Hello everyone, welcome to this global GEG broadcast. We'll be making a start shortly, and while we're waiting for everyone to arrive, why not head into the chat, let us know who you are, where you're from, your Twitter handle, and if you've got any questions that you'd like us to answer during the course of this evening, let us know there as well. Also, if you haven't already done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button to make sure you stay up to date with all of the events being organised by us at Global GEG. We'll be making a start really soon. Thanks for joining us. Hello, everyone.
All right, everybody. Hello, and welcome to another Gavin session. My name is Gavin Foster, and I am here today with Global GEG presenting everybody a session entitled Music Classroom Flipping. So before we get started, I just wanted to welcome everybody here and ask you please put your name in the chat and put where you are from and what's going on. Tell me what age level of musician what your current teaching assignment is. And as we go through the session today, if you have questions, please make sure you put them into our chat window. And any of the people working behind the scenes here on our Figure account will be able to tell you or tell me what's going on and I can address your questions. All right. So, for those people that don't know who I am, my name is Gavin Foster. I am a Canadian music teacher from Belleville, Ontario, Canada. That's about 2 hours east of Toronto. I am also a global leader. I am a Google certified trainer and a Google certified educator level 1 and 2. I'm a Flipgrid ambassador. I'm a sales staff expert, and I am also one of the CIA 2020 hopefuls to be a Google certified innovator coming up. So fingers crossed if that happens. But as you can imagine, during our COVID-19 pandemic, I have been rather busy as a certified trainer, providing sessions to educators all over the world. And so today I bring a music-centered session to everybody to talk a little bit about music flipping, or classroom flipping.
So here is.
I'm going to join you for a second. How's it going?
Not too bad. How are you?
Good. So we're having some audio things going on out here.
Okay.
So maybe could you like mute yourself and then turn the audio back on? And I'm also going to ask if the audio got any better when I joined back in. So if you're in the chat and you want to fill us in on some audio things, since a lot of us are musicians and music teachers, we all know about audio and how much fun that could be. So we're just going to experiment a tiny bit. Thanks for being patient. All right, looks like he is attempting to mute and come back in. Yeah, thank you guys for being patient, and we're really glad that you are here today. 5 out of 5, yeah.
All right, is that any better?
It is. I'm gonna leave, and Gav, if it gets garbled again, I might just come back and mute myself, and you'll just have to.
That's fine. I'm okay with that. So I have switched my camera, so now I'm looking at the StreamYard screen, so I can see if you start flagging me down to tell me you can't hear me at all.
All right, sounds good. So sorry to interrupt. Have an awesome session.
That's okay. Thanks, Teresa.
Yep.
All right. So here is what we're going to be doing today. So I'm going to start out by teaching everybody the definition of a flipped classroom and what that means in case you don't know. I'm going to introduce you to some applications and some other tech tools that are going to be really useful when you're classroom flipping. I'm actually going to go over a sort of step-by-step of how you would actually flip a classroom. And then for those people who are absolutely terrified and don't know where to begin, I'm actually going to show you where to start and how to begin flipping your classroom and what to do to make it all work. So some things you're going to need today. Now, by the way, everything I'm doing today is available. You can see it on the bottom of the slide deck there, gavinzo.com/session10. And so this won't work live on YouTube or Periscope, but if you're actually in the slide deck and you click on any of these images, they're actually going to open up the different applications I'm talking about. So for today, I'm going to be talking about Flipgrid, which is this big green plus button here. I'm going to be talking about a small little add-on called School Video Recorder for Google Drive. I know it's a humongous name, but it's a fantastic little app. I'm going to be talking about Hyperdocs, and then I may get into screencastify as well. So if you are going to click on any of these images here, you'll get taken right to the store to download them for Google. All right, so let's start with what is classroom flipping. So in your sort of traditional classroom paradigm, students, they get their lesson at school from their teacher, and their teacher says, great, here's the lesson. Now take the work and go home and work on it. And your kids go home and they work at home in the privacy of their own home. They do their work, they come back, they get another lesson. In a flipped classroom, the students actually, their homework is to watch all of the lessons. The teacher makes videos of the lessons. The students go home and their homework is watching the lesson. And then when they come to school the next day, they don't actually have to sit and listen to the teacher for 25 minutes, go over the lesson. Instead, they get right into the work and they get into the the collaboration pieces and the exploration pieces. And as the teacher, you actually have a lot more freedom in a flipped classroom because you can float around and actually support the students with their work when and how they need it, rather than having to give up most of your class time to be standing there delivering a lesson. Now, little different when you talk about musicians. So in your sort of traditional instrumental music classroom, students, they get their lesson at school. They practice their instruments at home and they test at school, and they usually have to test in front of their peers. At least that's the way I grew up in a music classroom. So when I was particularly in high school, I remembered we had a test every Friday. So Monday morning, the band teacher would sit us down and go, here is your test for Friday. And we would spend a few minutes of each class every day, all week, working on this test. And then Friday, you'd have your test. And we all played in front of each other. And then my teacher, who was a little bit of a sadist, he said, well, you all played in front of each other anyway. So then he would just hold up a chart paper with our grades on it and show it to everybody and post it in front of the room. Now, in a flipped music classroom, students submit all their playing tests via video from the privacy of their own studio, whether it's at home or in their garage, or I had students out in the barn playing for the cows one time. And your class time is spent 100% working on repertoire and working on performance skills. And in the case of a COVID-19 world where we may or may not actually be playing live in classrooms, the way a music flipped classroom is going to work is the playing is all going to take place off-site. Your students are going to be given the tips that they need to go and practice somewhere else. They're going to be given the tools and techniques that they need to go and take their instrument and do their work. And then they are going to be sending you, the teacher, videos of themselves playing, and you are going to be able to offer feedback. And depending on how their camera sets and how you get used to it, you know, if the students say a clarinet player, you'll get them to show you their hands when they're playing, and you'll be able to say, you know, on your left hand, move your finger down, or you'll be able to talk about some things like body placement, and you'll ask them how to perform correctly. So that's basically music flipping. All right. So why bother? So number one, it cuts down on student test anxiety, performance anxiety. I have been flipping my music tests for about 4 years now, and it is singly the greatest day of my life when I decided to do that as a music teacher. Before music flipping, before all of this technology, in the olden days, 4 years ago, I see my students in grade 8, 1 40-minute session once a week. Every 5 days. Every 5 days, I see my kids 40 minutes. So I would say, okay, guys, we're going to have a test at the end of February. And I would spend pretty much all of January and February working up towards this test because my kids get 40 minutes once a week. And so we'd spend, you know, a few minutes of each class for basically 2 months getting ready to go. And then I have a class of, say, 36 kids. So I would say, okay, guys, your test is going to be the last day in February, and everybody gets one shot at this test. No redos, no whoops, let me start again. No, I'm sorry, John made me laugh. Nothing. You get one shot. You play it, and you play it in front of everybody, And there's no like, no, so-and-so is going to go first or they're going to go first. You just play and you play. And there's no time to breathe, no time to stop, no time to redo because I got to get through 36 of you in a day. And it would never happen. Kids would be absent. Kids would, disappear to the bathroom for 40 minutes. I'd never see them again. Kids would, be so embarrassed by their friends, teasing them that they would just, erupt into like laughter and tears and never get anything done. And me testing my students became the worst day of my life because it would turn from one class into about 6. I'd be chasing kids down in May for a February test because I wouldn't have seen them since then. And then, the students that were there, I wasn't getting the best work out of them because they were playing in front of their peers and their peers were being tools. So to do it this way, once you cut down on your test anxiety because the students aren't testing in front of each other, they have the ability to play this test as many times as they want and just send you their best one. And they have that freedom to do it whenever is best for them. So if my students don't feel comfortable playing the recorder at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning and they'd rather play it at 4 a.m. on a Sunday, they can because the flipped classroom is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whenever it works for them. So why else do I flip a classroom? Because it allows me a lot of time to give very specific personalized feedback to each student. And I'll show you this later. But when the students complete one of my tests and send it to me, I can actually reply to the student directly through the testing site, and I can give them personalized feedback for all the work that they are doing, personalized assessment, personalized feedback, and I can take that time to give them the help they really need, whereas in a traditional class, I never could. Why else do it? During class time, it allows you to actually focus on ensemble work. You don't have to devote 20 minutes of each class to practicing for their test if you don't want to, because you can just spend your time in class working on the ensemble work. Or, God forbid you have to, blitz theory for a while or something. You don't have to say, okay, we're going to spend 30 minutes on theory, 5 minutes working on your test. And you can actually take that time away and just devote your music class to ensemble stuff. Allow your music time to actually use it to make music instead of teaching kids all the ins and outs they need for their test. And then it's a great 21st century learning environment. Somebody once pointed out to me that, I'm not sure if it was my friend Frederick or not who pointed this out to me, but somebody pointed this out to me the other day that it's kind of silly to talk about 21st century learning right now because the 21st century on New Year's Eve is old enough to buy itself a drink this year. So it is no longer a little baby that we all have to take care of, but we are well rooted in the 21st century. And so it's time to start turning music that way as well. All right. So a lot of people, when they start thinking about flipping a classroom, they get nervous and they say, I don't know, I've already built my whole program around this particular learning management system. Well, you can actually flip a classroom using pretty much anything. You can flip it using Google Classroom, Moodle, Blackboard, Padlet, Brightspace, the VLE, pretty much anything. If you want to flip a classroom, you just have to have some kind of learning management system that you're using, and you go from there. And then I'll talk more about this in a bit, but you don't actually have to decide in August or July that you're going to flip your entire year. You don't have to say, I am going to flip my course, because that's a big undertaking to just decide to do. You can say, I'm going to flip this lesson, or I'm going to take this one unit that always, boggles my mind and flip that. And we're going to talk a little bit about hyperdocs later on in the presentation. And hyperdocs are a great way to flip a unit or to flip a series of lessons that you really don't want to do. I'm going to talk specifically, when I talk about hyperdocs, about day one, choosing your own band instrument. And for me, choosing your band instrument takes about a month for me. When I see my kids 1 40-minute class every week. It takes me about a month to introduce all the instruments, to get them to do a little bit of research on them, to listen to them, to see what they like, to try it out, and to say, yes, I want to play this for the rest of the year. It takes me about a month. And so I started flipping that whole section using Hyperdocs, and now I can do it in about half the time, and the students spend their class time better. We'll talk about that when I get there, though. All right, so here's how we're going to begin. So let's start with a single assessment, a single test, a single piece of assessment you're going to do. And what I would like you to do, this is quasi-legal, depending on what state you're in and where you are in the world. But we all know as music teachers, you're not supposed to, photocopy and digitally scan all your music ad nauseum unless you pay for it. But what I tend to do, and again, I'm thinking really young kids. I'm talking about grade 3, 4, 5 recorder kids. What I do right now is I take my recorder book and I usually take a photograph of like page 4. And then I crop the photograph to just line 3, which is the one that's going to be their test. So I'm not digitizing my entire recorder book and putting it out on the internet for all to see. I'm just taking a snapshot of that one line. So that's what I always do. I take a little electronic snapshot of a single line of music. My students are not at the point, my band students, where I'm going to say, you're going to play this entire piece for a test. It's usually going to be like an 8-bar phrase or maybe a 16-bar phrase for a test. So same thing. I would photocopy an entire page and then just snip it out. So only the part that's part of their test is what I'm giving them. So once you've got your little photograph of your music, put it in a Google Drive somewhere, save it for later. I always like to write down hard copy on a piece of paper with a pen, write down all the instructions I'm going to give the kids or any of my look fors or listen fors that I'm using for their test. And then I like to download a program called School Video Recorder. I have it back a few slides ago where you can click on it. It's the big red dot. It's a great little device. What it does is it activates your webcam and records a video of your face and puts it directly in your Google Drive for you. Really quick, really easy. It's a single button, start, stop. So for recorders, I would record myself playing the test for my students. So I get my recorder in my hand, get it all good to go, start School Video Recorder. I record myself playing, make sure that my students can see my fingers. I stop myself playing. I save that video to my Google Drive. And then I go in and I set up, and I'll talk about Flipgrid in a minute. I set up my Flipgrid for my students to record their videos for me. And then I put it all up in Google Classroom. I say, here is test 4. And when they go to test 4, there is a video of me playing test 4. There is a set of instructions for what I'm looking for and what I'm listening for. There is an image that they can click on that brings up their music, so they don't necessarily have to be taking a book to and from school every day. They can just pull up on their device that one line of music they need for their test. And then there is a link to the Flipgrid page where the students are going to perform their test for you. That's one assessment. That's a great place to start. If you're not sure how to start or what to do, start with one assessment. How am I going to flip this one assessment? And if that's your first time doing it, do it once. And don't do it like the first week of school. Do it a couple of tests in. We're going to do 2 tests the normal way, and now I'm going to do this new way where instead of playing the test in front of me on Tuesday, you're going to record it and send it to me. And then after you do it, ask your students for some feedback and see what they think. All right. So here is what I did personally the first time I started it. I started with a grade 6 recorder test. Now, at my school, only the grade 7s and 8s get band instruments. My recorders go through 4, 5, and 6. So my students have been working as a class on their recorder method book, working on some ensemble stuff. We've already in class gone over all of the different skills that the kids are going to need in order to play their test, but we haven't just been devoting hours and hours of time to playing the line for their test. We've been playing all kinds of stuff on the recorder. I'm just very cognizant of what their test is going to be so that I'm making sure I hit all the skills necessary for them to do it. We've actually even played their test a couple of times, and I haven't told the kids this is going to be your next test. I just make sure that I, as the teacher in my class time, have used this effectively. I announce on one day of class, I say, okay, guys, you got a test coming up. If you go to your Google Classroom, it's there. Test number 2. Here is a video of me playing it. Here's all the look fors you need to do. Here's a copy of the music. And you have 10 days from right now to get me the test. And the kid raises their hand. And they say, but Mr. Foster, do you mean like 10 classes? Because that's 3 months away. I say, no, I mean 10 days. You guys are all smart enough by grade 6 to have a watch or a calendar or something on your computer to know what 10 days is. I'm like, today is Monday. You have until next Wednesday to get me this test. I'm like, and I will see you next week on Monday to remind you that you have a test on Wednesday. But just so you know, you got 10 days. Take it home, practice it as many times as you want, get it so it's absolutely perfect. You can re-record the test as many times as you want to re-record it. But Wednesday night at midnight, my Flipgrid locks and closes, and you have until Wednesday night at midnight, 10 days from now, to get this to me. And the first time I did it, the kids were a little worried, and they have never complained since. They get it. I give them a test. They have 10 days to get it done. They can practice on their own time. I still see them in class, and we do still do stuff in class. But now, if we are going to take class time to practice their test, they actually kind of view it as a gift. Because it's not like it was when I was a kid or when I was a teacher 5 years ago, where I had to build into my lesson, okay, we're going to build in 15 minutes of practice time because I know this is when you're going to get it. No, it's like, you know what, guys, let's actually go back 4 pages and try the thing for your test. And they try it. And I'm like, okay, good. So you're in good shape. I can hear it once and see they are at a point where they can go and work for themselves. All right. So here is how I go about getting the music that I need for my tests. So here's how I got my recorder test to work. If you want to do a different method, go right ahead. This is mine. I have a copy of the class recorder book, method book that we use. I bought a copy personally. I took the staples out of it and I cut it so I had individual sheets. I fed those sheets through my photocopier at school, scanned everything to PDF. So I had a scanned copy of the book in my drive that was not shared with anybody but myself. I had that as PDF. I used a program called Sejda. It's right there. You can find it online if you're not on my slide deck. And Sejda has a command that says convert your PDFs to JPEGs. So all you do is you upload in that file that you have. So you upload in that recorder book file. It takes all your PDFs, converts them to JPEGs. Then I just take a simple photo editor, something that you might find on any Windows machine, and I just crop the JPEG until it's just, line 57 of music, whatever it is that they need. And then I save that line to a directory that I'm going to use later. And then the next time I need a test, I've already got the music already scanned and saved as PDF. I've got the PDFs already converted to JPEGs. I just need to find whatever page of the book the test is on and crop that one page so that the test is showing. And then, of course, I save that into a drive later in case I want to use the test next year. All right. Writing down all my instructions. I make them as clear as I can. Make them succinct, make them simple, nothing too wordy. I make the instructions directly related to whatever assessment that I am doing. So if I am going to be assessing their breathing and assessing their pitch and assessing their articulation, then I am going to put instructions for breathing and for pitching and for articulation. Make my comments as simple as I can make them. Okay? Provide some success criteria so that my students know what I'm going to need them to do to be successful. I open a Google Doc, which again, if you don't know how to do that, I have a quick link right here on my slide deck to go to your Google Doc, or you can always go from any browser to docs.new, and it'll give you a new doc. And then I save that Google Doc into a drive, and I have all the instructions there, and I can put them on my Google Classroom, on my Classroom webpage, on my Blackboard account, on my VLE or my whatever it is I'm using for my students. Whoops, wrong button. All right. School video recorder. So as I mentioned previously, I do have that school video recorder bookmarked a few slides back, but you can also click on it right here. Remember, you got to go to gavinzo.com/session10 for all of these links. So I install school video recorder. I accept all the permissions to let the mic and the camera work. I make sure that my microphone works and my camera works, make sure my lighting is adequate. And then I record a video of myself playing the assessment. If it's a long test and I want to record multiple videos, I can. If I am doing it for my, hello, Miss DeBoer Jones. I haven't talked to you in a long time. How are you doing? Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I haven't spoken to Andrea in a long time. Where was I? Record multiple videos. So if you were doing, say, a band test and you want to record yourself playing the test on every one of your students' instruments. So if you want to record on clarinet and flute and trumpet and everything else, you can record multiple tests. I always make one video that has all my instructions and all of my reminders in it. So I have one of me talking to the students, and then I have one of me just playing the test. Most PC mics pick up instrument sounds well enough for this video. Doesn't have to be beautiful, but most of these laptop mics are good enough that if I'm playing my trumpet into it, it's not going to crazy overmodulate or sound rotten. It's going to do what I need for a test. When you're finished with school video recorder, you've made your video, it drops it directly into Google Drive. So you don't even have to worry about going to find it and saving it and putting it places. It just dumps right in. And my favorite part about school video recorder is it saves everything in the .webm format, which is a very, very, very infinitesimal, teeny little file. So if you have students who are like on dial-up internet or something and they say, I can never watch videos, they can usually watch WebM videos because they are teeny, teeny, tiny, the WebM formats. They're really easily transferable. You can send them through email to people. It's not going to clog their email up. It's viewable through Chrome web browsers themselves. It's also viewable through like VLC and all kinds of video formats. I love the WebM format. It's teeny, tiny, and it's good enough quality for what you need. All right. Now, Flipgrid. Take a deep breath because this is going to stress some people out. Learning how to use Flipgrid is a whole other 60-minute session in itself. If you would like to learn how to use Flipgrid, I have a session, gavinzo.com/session4. It's called Flip Out with Flipgrid, starring Gav Session. It is recorded. So at the very end of the slide deck, you can actually click a recording and watch the entire 60-minute recording if you're interested in learning how to use Flipgrid. It is super easy. It is a program that used to be its own company and has recently been bought by Microsoft in the last 3 or 4 years. And now that it has been bought by Microsoft, it is a much safer program for educators to use because it falls under Microsoft's safety umbrella. Back when Flipgrid wasn't part of Microsoft, I had a lot of trouble getting it past my administration. In Canada, we have very, very strict regulations around what kind of software we can use for student privacy rights, and Flipgrid wasn't particularly safe 5 or 6 years ago, but now that it is under the Microsoft umbrella, it is allowed in my board for me to use. And so any Canadian educators out there, please feel free to check with your board, but Flipgrid should be good to go now. I still, with Flipgrid, send a message to my parents. I still send parent permissions. And if you go to my session, I've got my letter that I send out to parents and I've got the email I send out and how I do it. But it's fantastic. And the best thing about Flipgrid, it works everywhere. It works on PCs, it works on Macs, it works on Chromebooks, it works on Android, it works on iOS, it works on Microsoft Ones and Xboxes, it works on PS2s and like little Game Boy things. Like I have had students use Flipgrid on virtually anything with an internet connection, and they can still make a recording and send it to me. So I can't say enough amazing things about Flipgrid. It's fantastic. All right. So once you are into Flipgrid, what I do is I take all of those instructions that I wrote in my Google Doc and I actually paste them into the Flipgrid assignment. All those videos that I made of myself playing the test, Flipgrid has an import button and I just slide those videos right over from Google Drive. That sheet music that I copied like 10 slides ago, I again just drag it and drop it from Google Slides into Flipgrid. I like to set all the privacy in Flipgrid to moderate. I'll explain that in a minute. I set all of my launch dates and freeze dates, which I'll explain in a minute. And then you have to snap a little photo of yourself. It makes you take a selfie. And then I post the assignment to my kids however I do it. Now, let me go 2 steps up. Moderating. In Flipgrid, when you moderate a video, here's what it means. If you have 30 students in your class and they all send you a video, if it is moderated, nobody else in the class sees anybody's video except you, the teacher. Let me say that again. If you moderate the videos, and it's just a little toggle switch, it's easy to do, then nobody else can see anything except you. Here's the one negative to that. If my friend Bob sends a video to me for a test, Bob can't see his own video. Once he clicks send, nobody else can see the video in the world except the teacher. So I have had students send me 15 copies of the same video because they're not sure if I ever got it, because even they don't know it's there. Only I can see it. Once I look at a moderated video, I have 2 options. Option number 1, I watch the video, I assess it, I give feedback, I turn it back to the student, and then nobody sees it but me and that one student. Option number 2, after I watch the video, I can then unmoderate it so the rest of the class could watch each other's videos and they could see what everyone in their class is doing and contributing. This is not great for my students in the middle school level, but I do know a lot of high school teachers that if you've ever taken an online AQ teaching course, they've done the please put up your post and then please reply to 3 other people's posts as well. So you can actually do whole sections of your course on getting your students to give each other positive feedback through Flipgrid. So I could assign a test. And so test 1 is the students, play line 4 from their method book. And then at the end of a week, I've got all these tests in my Flipgrid. And then I could unmoderate all the tests, show them to the rest of the class and say, now for test 2, every one of you is going to go in and give feedback to every other member of your class. What could they be doing better? How could they sit straighter? How could they breathe better? Where are their fingers? You will tell them what kinds of things you really liked about how they played. So you can actually provide all of this feedback to each other. How do you send the video back to the students? They can see it. Okay, so in Flipgrid, when you are done and you've done your editing and your assessing, and you click turn assessment back to student, the student basically gets an email back with a web link in it. And when they click the web link, their video pops up that they can watch and all your feedback is next to it. So they get a copy of their video and their feedback and your feedback side by side. All right. So once you've got your sort of Flipgrid assignment written, there is a share button in Flipgrid, and it gives you some options. It either gives you a flip code, which is something I've never really used, but basically students go into Flipgrid and they type in like a 9-digit code and their test pops up. Or you get what I use all the time, which is a URL code, which I then just put into Google Classroom. So in their Google Classroom assignment, I add a URL and I put in that Flipgrid URL. And then on the bottom of their Google Classroom, it says, here's your Flipgrid test. And they click the button and it pops up. And then on the third side, now I've never used this, but my high school counterpart loves this, uses it all the time. Flipgrid will also give you a QR code. And so what he does is he has a bulletin board outside his classroom, and it says like grade 9, grade 10, grade 11, grade 12. And then underneath it, he just puts QR codes for their tests. So the students will walk by the hallway on lunch or whatever. They'll snap the QR code with their phone and it pops up and it's their Flipgrid page and it has the assignments, the video, the test, and how they submit it. So he posts all of his exams and posts all of his tests as QR codes on his board. So he says, my students don't even have to walk into my classroom to get their test. It's just sitting on the board outside my room. All right. So I'm just going to read Teresa's thing here off the board. She says, if I'm doing assessments in Flipgrid, I keep the videos moderated and not shown. If it's just a fun community building activity, I let the students see and comment on each other's videos, but they don't have to. Yeah, so it really depends on you. I got to say, most of my students don't like knowing the other students can see them in the videos. But every once in a while, I've done it. I've done for this. I'm very clear for this test. Your video is going to be shown to everybody, and then everyone is going to have to pick someone else in the class to comment on. And usually, if I do it once or twice, they're okay. The other thing I've done with Flipgrid, and I thought this was a test, and originally only because the first test was terrible, I thought it was a horrible idea. But then all the other tests I got were great. I had the kids conduct using Flipgrid. So rather than posting a video of me playing, I posted an audio clip of a band piece that we were playing in band. And I told the kids, like, set your phone up on your desk, push the button to start the music, and then I want you to back up and I want you to conduct. I want to see you conduct and I want to see you cue the different people in the band when it's their time to play and do invisible stuff. And I had the kids do an entire conducting unit using Flipgrid. And I could in the video hear the recording that I had posted. So I can hear them listening to the music and conducting and pointing where they need to go. And then they don't actually have to stand up in front of their peers and try to conduct them. Because I find every time I've done that, the students in the class tend to not really respond to a student conductor. They tend to do things obnoxiously on purpose. So this way you're actually watching them conduct without having them conduct their friends. Okay, so let me talk about Flipgrid feedback because it's new-ish. Flipgrid feedback used to be really mundane and boring. And it had sort of two options. You could assess their ideas and you could assess their performance. And that was it. And you could leave comments for a student's ideas and comments for a student's, I think it was delivery. Ideas and delivery. And I think Flipgrid received an awful lot of feedback about that from teachers. And now the feedback section is completely editable by us. So you can go in as a teacher and you can say, for this particular assignment, I'm going to assess, let's say we're doing a vocal assessment. I'm going to assess diction, pitch. I'm going to assess volume, and I'm going to assess facial expression. And so you can choose what areas you're going to assess. You can set a grading scale for each one of those things. So I can say the first one is at a 2, the second one is at a 5, the third one's at a 5, and the fourth one's at a 10. So you can set how you're going to assess each one. And then you get a big pros box in your Flipgrid feedback section where you can leave feedback, pros feedback to your students. So when you turn the Flipgrid video back to the student after you've assessed it, it'll pop up and the student will be able to watch their video and it'll say, you got a 1 out of 2 on diction, you got a 3 out of 5 on volume, you got a 4 out of 5 on pitch, and you got a 10 out of 10 on facial expression. And then you have pros comments. And my favorite part about the Flipgrid feedback is on the next test, when I go to do my next test, there's basically just a checkbox and it says, do you want to assess these 4 things again? Or do you want to add new ones? And so usually by the end of a school year, I don't have to write any things in my feedback form. I just have to check off some of the ones I've already used because I tend to assess on the same, 7 to 12 things throughout the year. All right. So that kind of gets me through the Flipgrid approach. And again, if there's any particular questions, please feel free to put them in the chat window and I can go back and address them. Or if you'd like to contact me later, you can find me at gav at gavsession.com. That is my easiest email handle. So gav@gavsession.com, or you can follow me online on Twitter on gavsession. You can always go to www.gavsession.com, and I can be contacted through my website as well. But if you have more questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to talk to anybody. All right. I'm going to move on to part 2. This is the Hyperdoc approach. And throughout this session, I've seen some people on the chat say, yay, Hyperdocs. I love Hyperdocs. Hyperdocs are great. So apparently people know what they are, which is fantastic. If you don't know what Hyperdocs are, I assure you they are fantastic. And they are a game changer. So a Hyperdoc is a 21st century worksheet, basically. Instead of handing the kids, a PDF file that you've printed off 30 times and they, read something and write something, a Hyperdoc is a 21st century version of that. It is a single page document generally, although some people now are using slide decks and stuff as Hyperdocs and each page is different. But the way I do Hyperdocs is it's a single page document. You give it to the kids. There is a curated set of links to whatever topic you're studying. And they're different styles. So there's YouTube clips. There's maybe podcasts for them to listen to. My wife is a science teacher, and on her Hyperdocs, there's always a gizmo the kids have to do where they go and they do like a science experiment virtually. There are collaborative things. There's drawings. There's all kinds of things you build into your Hyperdocs. And then within the Hyperdoc, there's usually 3 to 4 assignments the kids have to do. And by the time your Hyperdoc is done and your students have finished it, by the time they've finished it, they've completed an entire unit that you would normally take 4 or 5 classes to do, but they've done it at their own pace. They've focused on the parts that are most interesting to them. And you as the teacher spend your class time floating around and helping people out. Cora the Corgi just asked, what is a Hyperdoc? Give me a better definition. So I will give you the best definition I can as I go through, Cora. So you'll see them as we go. So unlike a learning board, which is basically a schedule that goes up like Monday to Friday, and it's like, okay, here's Monday, here's your math work. Here's Tuesday, here's your language work. Here's Wednesday, here's your science work. That's a learning board. That's just kids clicking on a calendar and finding their assignments. What a Hyperdoc does that makes it special is the students actually have to go through all of the steps of the learning cycle. So if you have set up your Hyperdoc correctly, by the time a student is finished, they will have engaged, explored, explained, applied, shared, reflected, and extended their knowledge on a particular subject. So all the things that you want to do with every lesson that you never have time to do, you can actually do it all with Hyperdocs, because if the student starts at the beginning and goes to the end, they've been through all of those different stages. All right, so here's the Hyperdoc approach. Choose one topic or one big idea or one unit or one 3-part lesson plan, something that would normally take about 3 or 4 classes to do. Curate a whole bunch of online resources for that topic. So this is on the teacher. This is on you. Maybe reach out to your teacher librarian if you got one handy, but basically it's on you to pull out some online resources. Make a variety of resources. You want audio, you want video, you want collaborative, you want games, you want drawings, you want memes or things like that for kids to see. Choose 3 or 4 assignments that the students are going to do based on whatever topic you're studying. Pick the Hyperdoc template that works the best for you, create it, and then share it with your students. Cora, I got a great answer for you. It is coming up, I promise. Bear with me. All right. So how do you choose a topic? Find a simple-ish topic, something that normally takes you 2 to 4 classes to complete. On a sticky note somewhere, write down your big ideas or your takeaways or what you need to know that the students know by the time your topic is done. So for me, I'm going to do choosing your first band instrument. That is my topic. Takes me about 4 classes to do that, and I'm going to do this as a Hyperdoc instead. Okay, curate some resources. Find some age-appropriate resources on choosing band instruments. Find a variety of things, print resources, audio resources, video resources, et cetera, et cetera. Vet every one of these resources before you select them. I can't tell you how many teachers I have met who have been like, oh, I'm going to just throw this video up. And then like partway through, it's hideously inappropriate for students. Please vet everything before you put it in your Hyperdoc, or you're going to regret it. And then again, on a sticky note somewhere, I'm going to just write down all those resources, or I'm going to bookmark them or put them somewhere where I've got them for later. Now I'm going to design some assignments. So how are your students going to show me their learning? Are they going to write something like a journal entry? Are they going to do like a Google form quiz? Are they going to collaborate with another student and create something? Are they going to use Flipgrid and record their voice? What does vetting your resources mean? It means watch them first, Maria. It means making sure that you have checked all the videos so that they are age appropriate, and it means that there isn't any swearing in them or anything that's inappropriate. All right. So again, write down whatever assignments you're going to do. Now for me, I download Screencastify. If you haven't used Screencastify before, again, I have a whole session on it. I think it's Gav session number 17, but I could be mistaken. Anyone who's got another window open up, if you go to gavinza.com/session17, I think that's my slide deck on Screencastify. But anyway, download Screencastify. If you want to grab it from my slide deck here, just click on the image and it'll take you to Screencastify. Accept all your permissions for Screencastify when you download it. And what I do is I then go through the Hyperdoc as if I am a student, and I record my screen doing all of the things I want the students to do. And then usually, and I'll explain this better when you see the Hyperdoc, but at the bottom of each section, I say, if you don't know how to do this section, click this link and watch Mr. Foster doing it himself. And they can like actually watch me doing the assignment that I want them to do so they can see how to do it. So I create these little how-to videos step by step, put it into my Hyperdoc. All right. So this was a question back a little while ago. Who asked me this? This was asked by... Oh, now I can't find it. Somebody asked me where you get the Hyperdoc assignments and templates. So, all right. Again, and I know it's just gone up here in a second. Yes, Corey, you're going to see the completed Hyperdoc in a second. In session 10 here, if you go to the Hyperdoc template that you see on the board here, it is going to take you to my favorite Hyperdoc template, which looks like this. This is my favorite Hyperdoc template. Everyone who I know who does Hyperdoc has their own favorite. It was designed by a friend of mine named Jen Giffen, who works at a school in Ontario. If you don't like my template, there is a link here that takes you to a Google Drive that has, I want to say, thousands of Hyperdoc templates for every grade level, every subject conceivably known to man. This is a rabbit hole that you will fall down for days if you go into this shared drive that I gave you access to. You can fall down this rabbit hole forever. These are Hyperdocs that have been shared by educators all across the globe. Some of them are templates. Some of them are actually totally filled out with subject areas. I've got science. I've got history. I've got primary literacy. I've got math. I've got economics. I've got calculus. Like, I got all kinds of stuff in here. If you don't like the template I gave you, feel free to fall down this rabbit hole for a while. Anyway, while I've got you here, let's talk about... Let me pull this up. This, my favorite template in the world, comes from a group of people involved in a project called Teachers Give Teachers. Most of us have heard of Teachers Pay Teachers. It's It's a great place where if you have a great idea, you put it up on the internet and say, look how great I am, pay me and you can be great like me. I don't believe in teachers pay teachers. I believe in teachers give teachers. So if you want anything that I have here, take it, it's yours. But teachers give teachers, but we also give credit. So you'll notice that whenever I use my favorite Hyperdoc here, I keep Jen Giffin's name on it because she designed it. This is hers that she designed, and she adapted it from somebody else's thing. And you're going to use my stuff, just keep my name on it so that everyone can see, hey, this is a really cool thing, and I borrowed it from this person over here. So teachers give teachers, but we also give credit. All right. Rename your template so that you can call it whatever you want to. And then, so rename it, and then you're going to fill in all the sections with your own stuff. So now let's look at a completed Hyperdoc. Again, if you go to gavinzo.com/session10, you can grab this Hyperdoc right from here and use it yourself. But, whoop, I lost it. Here it is. All right. So I know you can all read, and I'm running out of time, so I don't want to do this forever, but I'll go through it very quickly. In my engagement section, my students click the link, and they go to a YouTube video on why playing an instrument makes you smarter. Because the first question I always get in September of grade 7 is, why do we have to do this? This sucks. This is boring. This is dumb. Why do I want to play an instrument anyway? And as much as I want to tell them because I told you to, it doesn't always work. So if they click here, here's a video of how playing an instrument benefits your brain. In the second section here of Explore, I curated a YouTube playlist from an American music teacher, and it is day 1, lesson 1 on every instrument. So it's like, here's the flute, and he holds up the case. Then he opens it. He's like, it's in 3 pieces. Take it out. This is the head joint. This is the, and he literally goes through like opening the box of every instrument, showing you what it looks like, putting it together, making your first sound. And so I said, go and watch this little playlist. You can see day 1, lesson 1 in every instrument that we have. And then the next thing I want the students to do is, and again, most students can find YouTube themselves, but I have a link here to take them to YouTube. I have a link to create a Google Doc, and I want the students to go to YouTube. I want them to find one video of every instrument that we own at our school doing something that they think is cool. Generally speaking, like I'd say 90% of the time, my students find a video of a flute playing their favorite song. Every once in a while, it's a video of someone like standing on their head, playing the clarinet out of their nose, but whatever. If it's something they think is cool, that's all that matters to me because it means they've actually thought about it. I actually don't really care what's in this doc. I'm probably not even going to read it, but I want to know that all of my students have gone to YouTube and YouTubed, what does a trombone sound like playing blah, 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 blah. And they've found it and they've listened to it and they've thought it was cool. And I know that they've given thought about their instrument. In the next section, and this is the important one, there is a Google form where they're going to tell me who they are, what grade they're in, who their teacher is, and what instrument they want to play this year. This is the most important part of my entire thing. I want to know what instrument they want to play. Before they do it, here's a video that I borrowed from somebody. It might even be one of you two who's in here sharing this with me. It's a video of like an elementary school music teacher from the States sitting down, telling their students, this is what you have to think about before you choose an instrument. Do you live in an apartment? Do you walk to school? Do you have siblings? Do you like live with elderly people? Like there's all these things to think about. So like before you choose the loudest instrument humanly possible or the one that's, you know, the biggest thing that doesn't fit in a car, are you sure you want to play the harp and take it home? That's up to you. But they give you all of these things to think about. All right. Now, anybody still remember Padlet? I used to love Padlets. I hate them now because you have to pay for them, but I used to love Padlets. So what I've done now is, and I can probably do this, it's probably safe. If it's not, then just pretend you didn't see this. I make all of my students go into a Padlet. So this is one for flute. And I make the students post in something that another beginning flute student might find useful. So whether it is the basic embouchure for playing the flute, whether it is how to keep your flute clean, whether it is how to play low notes on the flute correctly, how to get a sound out of your head joint. So I get students to curate their own resources for each other so that 3 weeks in, when a student says, I have no idea how to play this instrument, it sucks, I can say, go to the page that you and all your friends designed with the helpful tips for each other. And again, I'm making them really think about their choice before they do it. I'm going to skip over and actually go right towards the end because I'm running out of time. But in my reflect section, I make all my kids do a Flipgrid video. They have to activate Flipgrid, record themselves on the camera and say, hi, Mr. Foster, it's Jim. I really, really, really want to play the saxophone, and I think I should get to play it because my great-grandfather played the saxophone, and my sister's goldfish has one, and my next-door neighbor used to play it and said he'd help me, so please let me play the saxophone. Thanks, Mr. Foster. I make all my kids record that video. I'm probably not going to watch them all. But every single test I do in my class uses Flipgrid. So now I don't have to take a whole day out of my once a week cycle to teach my kids how to use Flipgrid because they're doing it in this Hyperdoc. By the time they finish this Hyperdoc, my kids are going to know how to use Flipgrid. So when I go to test 1, I'm not going to have to spend a day and a half teaching them how to use Flipgrid because they already did it in my Hyperdoc. So while I may not watch every single kid's Flipgrid intently, or I certainly won't assess it intently, I know they know how to use it. So by the time my students have their first instrument, I know that they've really thought about it. They've looked up at least 2 YouTube videos on why they want to play that instrument. They've gone through and found a useful tip that someone in their first year playing this instrument might find useful, and they've learned how to use Flipgrid and do their first test on it. I generally give my kids 2 full class periods to work through this, and then it's due at the end of that second week. So what used to take me 4 weeks of getting my kids onto their instruments now takes me 2 classes, and I also know they've learned how to use Flipgrid. They've learned how to do other things as well. That's my Hyperdoc approach. All right. Posting your Hyperdoc. Your Hyperdoc is just a Google Doc. So you can post it on Google Classroom. You can email it out to your students. You can put it on, the VLE or Brightspace. You can do pretty much anything with it. And the best part is it's not one of those Google Classroom things where you have to create a unique copy for each student because no student writes on the Hyperdoc. The Hyperdoc is a set of links they just have to click. So you don't need to worry about, I've got 15 students in the same doc. Share it as view only because the students don't have to write anything on it. All they do is click on it. In some of my classes, I've even photocopied pages of their, I've even photocopied pages of their Hyperdoc and said, you guys just, here, if you want to read it, just go to your friend next door and click the hyperlinks on their machine. All right. So this is where I am going to leave you today. But before I let you go, a few things. Now, as you know, Global GEG will give you a certificate for being here today. Yes, it can be used with Seesaw. Hyperdocs can be used like choice boards. Andrea, please send me an email, gavs@gavsession.com, and we can talk all about it. I know that the local private school near us that you know very well has been using Hyperdocs and learning boards and Seesaw all year with my assistant, so I can help you out. So I know that Global GEG asks everybody, will send you a certificate for being here today, and they will ask you for feedback. But if you go to my session, gavinzo.com/session10, and you go to the last page in the slide deck, there is a link here that you can click, and it will give you your own certificate for being here today, designed by Gav Session. It's got my name on it. It's got my logo on it, and you can put it in your portfolio and show everybody all the amazing learning you've been doing over the summer. I also have my own feedback form, which is gavinzo.com/ feedback, and it is the only way I get better. So please, by all means, sign my feedback form and you'll be able to give me some feedback to get better at what I do. And finally, on the very bottom, for anyone who is a visual learner, I do have a place where you can give me Flipgrid feedback. It is not private. I will see your face, but if I spoke too quickly, or if I gave you too much to think about, or if you are so overwhelmed going into this that you need me to see the hatred in your eyes when you tell me off, you can use my Flipgrid page to give me verbal feedback, and I promise you I will respond and find a way to apologize for all of the wrongs I have done to you. All right, in the last 50 seconds before I go, if you teach music or dance or drama or art, please come and check out my session on Monday. I am running a session called the Artist's Tech Palette, where I'm going to give you an entire palette of web apps and doodads and gizmos and online things to help you teach music and drama and dance and visual art. Come and check it out Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Everybody, thank you so much for the session today. I am Gav Session. I have about 15 seconds left. So thank you so very much for being there. We are done, and thank you for stopping by. Special thanks to Teresa and Frederick, who were hiding in the back, making sure this all ran smoothly.